I want to thank everyone for coming. I'm Steve Salamone, Justin Salamone's father, and as Susan said, we started this group to provide resources to help other families understand the nature of the disease and try to have some impact for it.
They look very familiar. They look like the boy next door. They may look like your grandson or your son. They were good boys. They were good students. They made a choice. It was a bad choice, but we all make bad choices. They made a fatal mistake. They took a drug that's so addictive that just a small percentage of users can recover from it. But they didn't start with heroin. They started with Vicodin. Then they tried Percocet. Then they did OxyContin. And then they used heroin. My name is Susan Salamone. My son Justin died on May 29th, 2012. Once he started, he spent 6 years trying to stop.
As several people in this room, I lost my son to addiction. And my life changed completely. Since then, I have committed myself to preventing others I have committed myself to hopefully preventing as many others as possible from going through what my family has gone through. And over the last year, again, I have worked on this full time, and I've discovered many things, but most importantly, I've discovered this is not intractable, that there is a solution to this. This is not a disease or a situation that we have to sit by and let happen. This is something that I have discovered many things over the last year that we can do to make this significantly less of an issue. So in February, based on the first couple months of learning, I decided to leave hire someone to run my company, formed Brian's Wish in February, and I spent the last year hiring consultants working with me, and we're just finishing now what we believe is a very thoughtful and achievable plan to significantly reduce this issue around the country, drug and alcohol addiction, and the consequences of it. What we've accomplished in the last 12 months, since last February, I've recruited a leading team of experts on 3 boards, as I mentioned. Our business plan's been recognized by the Clinton Foundation as one of the best ideas that they've seen for this year, and I just spoke at their conference and presented them with our business plan. And there's another book. I don't know how many of you have read the book Beautiful Boy or heard of it. The sequel is coming out April 2nd, and the epilogue basically features our entity as one of his main solutions to this problem. This entity, the American Cancer Society, for this field. Some quick facts, and I didn't know any of this. I went through this for 6 or 7 years with my son and didn't know any of this. I had no idea how big it was, because addiction is in isolation. No one talks about it. You think you're the only one, or you think you're one of few. But the numbers are staggering. Addiction, as you can see in the top left, is the 4th largest disease by number of people that have it. In the bottom left, the number of people that kills annually, number 3. And about 150,000 people die every year from drug addiction. Even with those numbers on the left, private funding is basically non-existent. The big issue that most people don't understand is our kids. If you're 25 years old and you start drinking every day, you're not going to become addicted, probably. But if you're 21 and you start drinking and have your first hit of pot, you're 4% likely to become addicted. If you're 17, you're 18% likely to become addicted. If you're 14, you're 28% likely to become addicted. Prescription drugs are exploding. The marijuana is growing by 30%. This is like doubling every year. We can have an enormous impact right now. There are 4 things that have come together. Number 1, for the first time, this is being recognized as a disease. It wasn't that way 20 years ago. Brain scans have now proven your brain changes. Once you're addicted, the choice is no longer yours. Number two, recent healthcare legislation is going to put millions of more people into treatment. But what I'd really like to talk to you about today is as a father. And Brian was from the beginning. You saw his pictures earlier. He was a lovable child. Always cared about others. But he also struggled. He had anxiety, and he had attention deficit disorder. He was the last to be picked for soccer. The last. But he was the first to crawl under a fence at Yankee Stadium to give a homeless person a quarter when he was 8 years old. So for their sake, and in Brian's memory, I have made a promise. Enough. No more research ignored. No more Americans suffering, feeling ashamed because they have a disease. And no more lives wasted.
If you look at this, and this data comes from the National Institute on Drug Abuse, prescription medications such as Vicodin, OxyContin, and other drugs are now making up a significant percentage of drugs that are being abused by younger and younger people. Basically, 1 in 9 young people are now trying prescription drugs or have tried some in the past year. And 25% of those began abusing drugs at age 13 or lower. Now, obviously, we had talked, this had been talked about before too, but there's a number of warning signs. People that have a history of ADHD, anxiety disorders, depression, are almost twice as likely to have substance use disorders than the regular population.
Good evening. In 2012, in Westchester County, there were 54 overdose deaths from drugs of all kinds. My son Eric was one of them. But on June 11th, the State Senate and the State Assembly passed unanimously the iStop law, which sets up a database for doctors and physicians. One of the things I'd like to see come out of that is, since they set up this database, that overprescription could be flagged.
My name is Christopher Mazzini, and I was Eric Christensen's best friend. So it takes a lot for me tonight to stand up here and talk about what I went through, because of my image, I figured. But in going through all this, without your life, what's your image? And my best friend lost his life. And so my first experience with prescription painkillers was when I had my knee surgery in 2002. And my doctor prescribed me 30 Vicodin or 30 Percocet. The first thing I said to myself is, I like the way it feels, but I know I will never become addicted. I promised myself. When you take pills, they prescribe you 30 and you take 2 as needed, and then they start working less. When you take 2 and it doesn't work the same way, you take 3. And that's the last time you could ever take 2 and have that same effect. I guess I was what you can call a functioning addict. I worked in finance, I lived in the city, I had a good job, and I didn't even live at home, so it was hard for my family to see what was going on. I also want to talk about the accessibility. The accessibility is at the snap of your fingers. I mean, I could go into a doctor's office and I could walk in and get $4,000 to $5,000 worth of street drugs, prescription drugs, in 1 or 2 scripts. We're not going to drug dealers on the alley in the city anymore. We're going to see guys in white coats.
I'm going to read a portion of a letter Eric wrote. Dear Mom and Dad, a million sorries can't express how sorry I am for letting you down. I beat myself up over it every minute of the day. I hate living outside of my true character. I'm tired of not living the life, being the good man I know I am and was raised to be. This is what drugs do. They change your chemical reactional thinking. They change your character. This has to stop.
It's not something where you're addicted and that's it, and you don't want to tell anyone because that's how you feel. But once you actually deal with this and you come out and you're in recovery, there's actually a life outside of it.